Hello, the internet. I have quite an interesting topic of discussion today. Let us think about a fantasy land together. Let us pretend that we're perhaps playing DayZ or Rust or another very interesting survival video game. And in this video game, we need to turn an urban structure, say just your average residential drywall house, into a fortified tactical location, right? What do we want to call that? A operating base or a safe house or a radio outpost, whatever the case is, whatever nomenclature we'd like to place on it or specific role it might serve. We need to throw this civilian urban structure into a tactical role. And how are we going to do that? First, let's talk about just the general layout, right? Obviously, I don't know the exact structure of the residential building you're going to find when you're playing Minecraft, but you're going to need to, inside of that structure, have a place for sleeping to accommodate all the people that you are currently housing, which is probably, not blah, 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 blah. You need to have sleeping quarters for everybody that is now a part of this tactical community that's living in your house, right? This house in Minecraft, which is probably going to be more people than you normally have, right? Because normally we're not running patrols and security detail and operating the radios and things like that. Normally we're just living our life. So we have an increased amount of people in our house. They need to sleep somewhere. Think multiple bunk beds in one room type situation. All right. We need to have a cooking and eating area. Those could be the same spot, or they could be two spots adjacent to each other. Probably already have that in your house. It's pretty standard. We don't need to complicate it, but we need to be very strict about it. If we start allowing everybody to eat cookies and crackers in the bed, we're going to have a serious pest infestation and hygiene problem quickly. So very strict about only eating in the prescribed locations. All right, in a nice central spot, we're going to have a COC or a TOC, right, whatever you want to call it, a place where we have maps and radios and people that are in charge of things, giving out orders and the such, right? Computers, laptops, rosters, checklists. These are the things you find in the COC or the TOC, whatever you'd like to call it. Ideally, this is going to be an internal, a place that's inside that isn't exposed to any windows or any external walls, and is large enough to house a couple people comfortably to work, and then could cram a bunch of people in there if you need to. Probably in your home, you're not going to find a spot that fits all of that. So just do your best with what you got. Make your own decisions. All right. Also, when we're considering the layout and how we're setting things up, we're going to want to think about exit strategies. We're going to want to have one exit plan for every main exit. So normally that's a front door, back door, and a garage door. And then we're also going to want to pick one alternative exit, right? Pick at least one, if not two windows that we can hop out of, or whatever the case is for your exact location that makes sense based on the exterior layout, correlation to the road or a forest or something like that. Take that into consideration when you're setting up the layout of your house. And then the last thing is going to be fighting positions, okay? In a perfect world, you could set up all pretty much fighting position at every window. Realistically, you're probably going to be limited on supplies and such, which we're going to get into all that here in just a second. So what you're going to want is you're going to want to have interlocking fields of fire on all the main avenues of approach, right? So typically that's just going to be a road, perhaps also an alleyway. You're going to want to be able to have at least two positions that have interlocking fields of fire on those avenues of approach. And also, hopefully from those positions, you're going to want to have cross coverage for the main entrance. So if somebody's approaching you from that avenue, from the road, you can start to shoot at them if you'd like. And before they actually breach your building, they will be under a hailstorm, final protective fires. Look at my defensive video. Two lines forming an X right at that entrance spot where they're going to have to cross that hailstorm of bullets to actually start to breach your building. All right. Talking about the security portion, which is going to be the largest portion of this. Sandbags are key. Sandbags are cheap. You can buy a lot of them. You can keep them just all stacked in a very nice little tiny spot. They're very flat. They just lay up on top of each other in nice little bundles. And then you can fill them up with whatever, dirt, sand, any earth. Put earth inside the sandbag, tie it shut, stack it high up to the bottom of the window, stack it 2 or 3 layers deep, and stack it wide enough for 2 people to comfortably crouch behind and operate weapon systems. Right, so probably like 8 feet wide up to the bottom of the windowsill, 2 to 3 layers deep at each fighting position, which you're going to want to have probably at least 4, right? 2 in the front and 2 in the back to give you that interlocking fields of fire and cross coverage. More is always better, but earth and sandbags perhaps are in short order. All right. We also want to fortify whatever we've selected as the COC. We want to give that as best 360 security with sandbags as we can. Again, probably stacking only to waist high. Due to logistical concerns, if we come under contact, people can go ahead and get their asses down, crouch down, and stay protected by those sandbags. If you were able to have an entire room as your COC, then you can line all those walls. If it's just like your living room, perhaps you can just sandbag off a large portion where the COC operates within, whatever makes sense for your exact floor plan. All right, exterior doors, you're going to want to fortify them. There's tons of videos on the internet, but you're going to want a solid door, no windows or anything like that in your door that could be broken and breached easily. You're going to want to take, how do I explain this quickly? So normally your door jamb, the wood that your lock goes into is very not strong and can get kicked open easily. And that little tiny metal plate that's like 1.5, 2 inches wide does nothing to help you. And those little screws that are only like a ½ inch deep do nothing to help you. You can buy kits that vary from like just at Home Depot or Lowe's. You can buy kits that are awesome that come with like a 2 foot or 3 foot long. It replaces that little 2 inch. It's late. I can't think of the name. That little 2 inch plate that goes on your door jamb, that comes out and it's like a whole 3 foot long piece of metal, and then they give you big like 3 inch screws to go all the way into the actual frame of the door, not just the door jamb itself. And so that will do, even just that kit from like Home Depot or Lowe's will make your door a whole lot harder to kick in. But they sell like these crazy kits that you completely wrap the inside of your door frame in the same concept, but it fortifies the total inside of your door frame, basically makes your doors impenetrable. They almost have to like rip out the framing of the door to get through it. They're not going to be able to go through the door itself. So whatever you can, invest in that direction, fortify your doors, look on the internet. There's tons of videos about this. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Make it difficult to breach your doors. Same thing can be said about your windows. You can put 3M film over your windows to make them difficult to break, right? Even if somebody breaks them and they shatter, it'll all shatter in place and not necessarily fall out right away. You can possibly, if it's okay and acceptable with your HOA and you like it, put bars on the outside of your windows. That's also a good thing to do in this Minecraft server world. Got it. Cool. So other than getting shot and having people enter your house, the next thing most likely to happen is they're just going to burn your house down, or they're going to gas you out or smoke you out, right? So now we need to take steps to mitigate our house burning down and us getting gassed out of the house, right? First and foremost, easiest thing, fire extinguishers all over the place. Fire extinguishers just in every room of the house is a standard. Extra fire extinguishers at places that people would be while we're under siege, right? The COC and the fighting positions. They make automatic fire things that you can screw onto the wall. They make fireballs that you can hang up on the ceiling. Those are probably awesome to have in conjunction with fire extinguishers that you physically use yourself. Okay, so, and then the next thing is going to be they're going to try to smoke you out. So we'll talk about it more in depth in a little bit, but if and when you come under attack in your safe house, your urban base, whatever we want to call it, somebody's job is going to need to be go around and shut all the doors. That way, if somebody breaks a window and throws in a smoke canister or CS gas canister, it's only going to fill that room, right? So we've sectioned off the house so the whole house isn't going to fill up with smoke. It will have a similar effect in delaying fires as well, and preventing smoke from fires from filling the entire house also. The next thing we could do is install some weather stripping at all the doors inside the house beforehand, right? If all the doors inside the house are more airtight or as airtight as we can make them, then the effect of closing all the doors is going to be exponentially even better. We're actually going to be locking down portions of the house and separating them. Not even the cracks of the doors are going to let stuff through. Awesome and wonderful. The next step of mitigating smoke and chemical warfare on your house is establishing, at least in the positions where people are going to be manning during a siege, the fighting positions and the COC, a ventilation system. You can literally just go get an exhaust fan. What are they called? They're called an inline duct fan, inline boost fan, duct boost fan, inline fan. And, those are like literally $20-$30 for like a 6 or an 8-inch inline fan. If you want to be fancy about it and make it look nice, you can go get actual like bathroom ventilation systems, but install them in the rooms that you've dictated to be your fighting positions and stuff like that. So, whatever the case is, as soon as you come under siege, you close the doors, the areas where humans are going to actually occupy, you turn on fans so they're venting the air out already. If you do come under attack of smoke, it's going to help vent that smoke out into the attic and then out of the house, out of where you are not going to be choking on it. It's not going to affect you. You're going to be able to continue to stay in place and withstand the siege. Last but not least of dealing with the smoke and possibly even the fire is setting up individuals for success, right? Gas masks would be awesome. They're kind of expensive. I don't expect everyone to own 8 gas masks to man, for all these different people and places. Do what you can. Have ventilation systems. Have, if all you can do is know that you're going to take bandanas or whatever and tie them around your face, t-shirts, tie them around your face, or get them wet and tie them around your face, then cool. Have that shit ready to fucking go. Have goggles that seal. You can buy shit at Walmart, multi-packs, especially during summer, and throw those on. I know that looks stupid to have a bandana tied around your face and some swimming goggles on, but if that's the best you can do, that's going to help you a lot if someone throws a CS fucking canister into your house, right? Have the house blocked off, have the ventilation system turned on, have your eyes and your mouth covered as best you can. You're going to be able to withstand a whole lot more siege effects than they're expecting you to be able to withstand. All right. Each fighting position, ideally, is going to be manned by 2 individuals. In that fighting position, I would suggest trying your best, if you can, logistically, to have an AR and a shotgun, right? Obviously, that AR is going to be high volume fire. It's going to be able to support that shotgun while the shotgun has to do reloads and stuff like that. But a shotgun in an offensive situation where we are defending an urban suburban house, right? We're talking at probably ranges well within 50 yards. Just cranking buckshot all day long is going to have extremely positive effects at this range. It's going to have extremely positive effects against vehicles, against crowds, against lots of stuff. So, getting a couple shotguns active in that gunfight is important. However, as I already mentioned, I would pair that with an AR so there is a high volume of fire weapon with that shotgun. Right, I wouldn't have 2 ARs on one and then 2 shotguns on another. I would 1 and 1 on each if you can. Again, gas masks or best replacement for them. Have vents in the fighting position rooms and have firefighting equipment, fire extinguishers and the such in those fighting positions as well. All right. Jobs under attack. Once you come under siege, everybody needs to know what their job is, even if they're not a combative person, even if they are a woman or possibly considered a child or something. We can put them to work, if you will. There is no free lunch here. So, first and foremost, we need individuals to fight. That's the number one thing. So we need to man our fighting positions. Ideally, we're going to have 2 positions for the front, 2 positions for the back, 2 persons per position. That's 8 people. We also need somebody to be leading that's not necessarily in the fight, to be managing and understanding what's going on at each fighting position, making sure all the doors are shut, making sure the ventilation systems are working well, making sure that everybody that's not a combative is where they're supposed to be, understanding what's going on with the fight, making the call of if it's time to evacuate, attempting to aggressively fight any fires that happen not directly in fighting positions, etc., etc., etc. We need to have somebody who's a fighter, but they're the leader of the fight, that aren't directly tied to a fighting position, to help coordinate and control this chaotic situation. All right, anybody else that for some reason isn't fit to fight, which is totally fine, they need to be doing something like destroying intelligence or prepping to evacuate, right? So you're either in the COC, wiping radios, ripping up maps, running paperwork through the shredder, or you're stuffing bags full of food and warming layers and whatever else in preparation for a final movement from this house should we should the siege be successful, right? All right. Then, I already touched on it, but we'll touch on it again in more detail. The evacuation plan, right? So you need an evacuation plan for each main exit. Typically, that's going to be a front door, a back door, and a garage door. And then you're going to need to pick at least one, but it could be multiple. Don't let one limit you if you have another one that makes sense. Exits, right? So exit plan. So not only are all the doors that we could exit the house, but we're going to pick at least one window or something of the such that is a good window to bust out and roll out of for everybody. So no matter where we start to receive pressure from the house, we can scream out to everybody, exit plan number 1, exit plan number 3, whatever the case is. And everybody knows, cool, we've been breached. It's now time to evac, and we're evacing through this direction of the house, which is the furthest away from where we've been breached at. All right, that evac plan isn't just everyone run out that door. It's run out that door. How do we get out that door? Is there any sort of booby traps or anything that we've set that we need to defeat before we get out that door? If it's a window, how are we going to break the window? What are we going to use to break the window? How are we going to make sure the window is safe for us to get through once we've broken it or opened it or whatever the case is? Once we're outside of the structure, how do we continue to evade? Is there a fence in our way? Is there whatever in our way? If there is something in our way that we have to continue to defeat another obstacle, we need to have equipment or whatever staged to defeat that obstacle. We need to have the saws ready to cut the fence down. We need to just go ahead and build a gate in the fence ahead of time so we can use that gate now without having to cut the fence down. Whatever the case is, have a ladder pre-staged, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Whatever makes sense for your exact situation. Understand not only how you're going to get out of the house, but how you're going to continue to escape and evade. Set yourself up for success. And then last on the evasion plan, the evac plan, we're going to want to have a rally point. So we're going to want to have a place that we've decided that's far enough away, that it's safe, that everyone, after they've attempted to escape from the siege, can rally at. And we need to have a predetermined amount of time that we're going to wait in place at that rally point, and then standardized follow-on actions of what to do if you are unable to make it to that rally point or unable to make it to that rally point in that given time. What are we doing after we're done waiting at the rally point? That's all part of the evacuation plan. All right, last subject. Radio communication. All right, comms are important. Comms are needed. The entire purpose of your structure perhaps is to relay comms and listen into comms that are going on, signals intelligence, listen into comms that are going on in that area. Any sort of transmitting we do, we want to not give off a signal that can be discovered right? Which is basically impossible because any signal can be discovered, but I'll get into it. Essentially, you don't want to shit where you eat. You don't want somebody to pick up that you're dropping a bunch of radio traffic from this house and then they just JDAM you. There's no defense against getting hellfired. All right, so you're going to want to establish a large relay repeater system that is greater than 100 yards away from your house, so that if it gets raided or it gets exploded, it's likely that you will not be in the collateral zone of those things happening. It's 100 to 500 yards away, ideally. Okay? And then in order to get signals from where you're at to that spot, you need to have directional antennas. It could be Yagi antenna, whatever. You need to have a directional antenna, and you need to be utilizing the absolute lowest power to just barely reach out to that repeater, right? So your signal is just shooting a straight line for the 300 yards from your structure straight to that repeater, and then that repeater is booming that message out however many miles and miles you need it to go, and vice versa. That repeater's antennas are listening to everything, big huge antenna listening to everything all over the place, and then directionally booming that back to you, or booming that back out because it's a repeater, and then your directional antenna to it can hear that. So all the traffic that's going out and in is coming through a very low power directional antenna that is extremely unlikely for it to ever be detected. The physical antenna or antennae that you put up in your house, in this building that you're creating, this urban base or safe house, you're going to want to disguise them, obviously. Fortunately, this is already a huge thing that's popular in the ham radio industry because of HOAs. So just go ahead and get on the YouTubes, the Google machine, and look up HOA acceptable antennas, hide my antenna from my HOA, blah, 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 blah. There's going to be hundreds of videos of dudes talking about every different antenna type you could possibly think of, and the techniques and strategies they've used to hide them from the HOA. You use those same techniques on a directional antenna to be hidden from the eye, and the directional antenna with low power hides your signal from other people trying to find your signal. And then your repeater system is far enough away so that if it gets blown up or raided, you are still safe. And that is how you run radio communications discreetly and safely from a house without being identified. Wonderful. That concludes today's lesson.